Well, thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate your time and
thank you.
doing this in the semi-cold.
I love it. This is awesome.
Tell me about, first of all, for those people who don't know about Centro San Antonio, we've had a number of organizations over the years that change things downtown, different groups that work with the city, different private partnerships, public-private partnerships. How do you describe it as to what Centro does? Because they have a couple of missions.
Yeah, so Centro, we consider ourselves the placemakers of downtown. So everything we do is about how do we make downtown a place that people love to live in, to work in, to visit and enjoy. And we do that with four different sort of guiding principles. So how do we make it more beautiful? How do we make it more prosperous? That's where Sarah comes in particular. How do we make it more welcoming, which is really, kind of part of the DNA of the culture of San Antonio. I mean, having moved here recently, I'd say this is the most welcoming city I've ever been in. So how do you sort of amplify that? And then, how do we make it more prosperous, beautiful, welcoming, and playful? And playful comes out of a lot of my background before coming here. Plays the way in which we are curious and we're creative, and how we sort of connect together and forge, family and friendships and empathy and all kinds of good stuff that's way beyond kids in a playground. Kids in a playground is great, but place for everyone. So we're sort of gunning for San Antonio to be known as the most playful city on earth. That's our big area.
In terms of overall overarching how you get funding and who's involved in paying for it, before we get to the main street.
Yeah, so how's all that work? So, and a quick little history. Ben Brewer was the original sort of executive director, president, CEO. I'm sure he had a bunch of cool titles. I think it was around 28 years ago or thereabouts, 28, 30 years ago. And so that was an alliance of property owners downtown who came together and like, hey, like, what can we do to make downtown a better place to live, a better place to work? And so that evolved and over the decades, and a little over 10 years ago, a public improvement district was adopted. So PID for short, and at that time, Ben led that, and then it switched over the leadership to Pat DiGiovanni. And over the course of the last 10 years, it's actually expanded a little bit. So the PID is a little geography that many people might think of kind of like the center city. Like we capture the Alamo, and we're down to Nueva, and we're up to Market Square, and up to the Tobin Center and the library. So think of that kind of area. That's where the PID resides. And so today, Centro is actually three different nonprofits, and we all work under kind of one umbrella. So there's the PID management group, that's the more substantial. Then there's the Alliance is still alive, and we are rededicating ourselves to the Alliance this year and going forward, because that's really a membership organization. And the last one is the Centro Partnership, and the partnership is our 501c3. So we have C6, C4, C3. They have different purposes for existing and coexisting, but for the outside world, there's just Centro. The way they get funded, the Alliance, as I said, is a membership organization. So if people make in-kind contributions or they write a check to the partnership, then we use that money to then reinvest. The partnership's able to spend money outside of the PID. So it allows us to extend our reach to all of downtown. We call it the greater downtown area, so not just 35, 37, and 10, but near west, near east, get up past the Pearl. I mean, I know I talked to Maurice from the Witty. She's like, I think we're downtown too, right? So we really think about our work and our influence extending out. So the partnership in particular allows us to spend money to do that, or the Alliance does, sorry. And then the partnership is where people can make charitable contributions if they want to, and then it's also houses all the employees. Don't ask me why, but that's what the brain trust before I got here has done. I know it's the smart thing to do. And then there's the PID, and The PID, you can think of metaphorically as a homeowners association. Every year, all of the commercial property owners downtown, so the Frost Tower, Western Urban, for example, as well as all the condominium owners downtown, they make a voluntary contribution. It is based on the value of their property, and that's collected by the city. And the city, as the authorizing municipality, it also has to make a contribution based on its developed land. So not the parks, not the parking lots, not that, but any, like the city hall, some building, if they have a building. And CPS, similarly, since they're partially, I guess owned or some like a triple P with the city. When you put all that together, private property owners pay for 95% of everything, and the city and CPS make a meaningful but proportionally pretty small contribution. So I appreciate the question, because I think it may be forever that we have to explain that what our work is doing is not tax dollars. It's not your tax dollars. It's actually predominantly, by far, vastly, all of it together, you're talking city contribution, tax dollar contributions less than 1% to do all the things that we do downtown.
The last quick question about that is, people might think, well, wait, the downtown business owners all decided to more or less tax themselves?
Yep.
And so do some opt out? Do some say, hey, I don't want to be part of this?
They're not, based on the enabling legislation from the state, the way in which this works is it is a democratic vote, but if 50% plus one of the value of the property value, so you add up all the property owners and the value of their property, as well as numerically, if 50% plus one vote, everyone comes along, like a homeowners association. You don't get to opt out of your homeowners association, even if you don't like what the majority of people voted to do, like put in a new swimming pool or whatever it is. So that's how it works. And the entire PID will come up for renewal. There's a period of time that it's authorized for. So the next time that is for us will be in 2023, and we'll have to convince the property owners that it's worthy, and our work is worthy of their continued investment. So, every day we work hard to make downtown more beautiful, prosperous, playful, and welcoming, and I think we'll get there.
And feel free to talk over each other, and especially me, but when you came here, it sounds a little complicated to figure out, okay, all those three moving parts and where's the money coming from, but you also identified some needs and some issues that you wanted to see addressed, and that's why Sarah is here. What did you come to the conclusion that this position that Sarah needed to do?
Yeah, interestingly, when I first got here, I know I'm leading, but it's a whole team, like not just my whole staff, but the whole board and committee members. Like, it's a whole team effort to come up with an evolution of who we are and what we self-identified as the placemakers of downtown. And when we were doing that, I explicitly said we are not doing economic development. We have EDD at the city. There's the SAEDF, and I was on a stakeholder team, helping them create a whole new strategy. And there's chambers. We have lots of people doing economic development. Let's us focus on the placemaking, like the events, the programming, the physical improvements, all these things that we could be doing. And then COVID hit, and what COVID revealed a bunch of things, and one of them was that there's no organization, let alone like a person, who's dedicated 24/7, 365 on the health and vitality of the small business, I'll call it the Main Street business ecosystem downtown. There are groups like the West Side Development Corporation and SAGE and Southside First. There's other ones that are awesome. And it's like we're in like in a donut hole, and EDD can't do that. I mean, they're looking at the whole city, right? And EDF is, looking at the whole city and strategically in different areas. Yeah, the Economic Development Foundation. And so we're like, okay, like, it's a bloodbath for small businesses and who won, like, great small businesses, and the great small business ecosystem means that downtown will be a more delightful, wonderful place to live, right? Like you don't want Cafe Alameda to disappear, if that's like the place you've gone since you were a little kid. You don't want the skate shop to disappear. Like, what makes downtown interesting? And I don't want to take anything away from like major chains like Subway or you need to have those, but that's not what makes San Antonio, downtown San Antonio, distinct and delightful, and something that people who are from here go like, I love my city. Like, it's not Subway, right? So these small businesses are critical to the culture of our city. They're critical to providing the amenities and the services and the products that people need and want who live and work down here. And so we're like, well, we're it. Like, we're going to raise our hand, and we'll be the group that says, let's take on this challenge. And public improvement districts in other cities do have economic development, so it wasn't like an anomaly, but someone had to raise their hand and go, okay, we'll take it. So I'm like, I'd like to do that, and the board's like, let's go do that. And then I was lucky to get Sylvia Goana Lopez to she'd been like hounding me way before that, going like, I just want to help and be a part of Centro, and the stars aligned right when I was thinking this. She's like, I'm free. So she came in and volunteered to help set up our economic development department, and then I got super crazy lucky, because then a whole bunch of other people, and we had been working a little bit in Sarah's role at the city, but I had a bunch of different people, including our professor at UTSA. He was the final straw. He's like, you better like call her and try to get her to join, because I think she's going to leave the state if we don't like anchor her down here. I'm like, well, I better call fast. And so that was, I don't know, a little while ago, and now Sarah's joined us on November 1st to take the baton from Sylvia and lead our whole group into how we nurture forever, it's a increasingly strong and vibrant and resilient ecosystem for small businesses. And when I say ecosystem, and I'm going to stop talking, is it while we have to work and help like each individual and sort of customize that where we can, the bigger piece of work, and the one that is sustainable over time, is ecosystem building. Like, how do you, like, let's just use like farming as a metaphor, right? Like, or gardening. Like, how do you get the right soil, and how do you till the soil, and how do you put the right fertilizers on there, and get the right sun, and then get the right plants in there, and then like weed them properly. Like, if we can nurture the ecosystem, then all kinds of entrepreneurs can take advantage of the ecosystem, right? And businesses can grow and prosper in good times. And when things are bad, right, then the ecosystem is a lot more resilient, right? Like the businesses are much more capable of withstanding what's happening right now. So that's why we're doing the work, and that's why I'm using the term ecosystem. It's really a system problem, so we need system solutions to strengthen our local economy.
And you came from the city doing I don't know how you would describe your position there, but
so I actually worked at Center City Development because I was at UTSA, and then got hired with the city as an intern, and then just kind of moved up from there. But I worked on a lot of the downtown development initiatives. So I think some of the more popular ones you're probably aware of are like the Center City Housing Incentive Policy, for example, was one that I worked on. ICRIP, which was a fee waiver program meant to try to infill the city. San Antonio sprawls out quite a bit, and it was part of the concerted effort to just get growth to fold in on itself, get people to come back to the downtown, revitalize it. And the idea being, of course, from SA 2020 was get more residents downtown, and then the retail and the jobs will follow. and we were going full force on that. And a few years ago, needs, as cities change, policies change, there was a need more to focus on affordable housing, and so Center City Housing Incentive Policy kind of pivoted to being more affordable. Some of the programs got just shifted within the city, and I had the opportunity to move over to the Economic Development Department. So I worked with Renee Dominguez, who at the time was our director, and more recently Alex Lopez. But I love downtown. Like I went to school for urban planning, and it was urban and regional planning, but for me it was really urban planning. And we focus so much on housing, and you can see like a lot of downtown, a lot of the new apartment complexes downtown. Like it's interesting. It's really fun to work on a project that you can then walk around in when it's done. And it's just really, really thrilling, really exciting. And then you have other, large scale investments in downtown. But even when we were working on these housing programs over at Center City Development, we kept thinking like, but who's taking care of like the business environment? Because we just we were working on housing, but we always wanted somebody else to come in and do like the smaller businesses, the things that make living in a downtown really exciting. I mean, you can walk down Houston Street now, and there is more now, but if you remember even a few years ago how different everything was. And then, as things at the city have pivoted and adjusted, Matt came and talked to me about what he wants, and I was like, this is perfect, this is exactly what we need. And he's like, you want to lead it? And I was like, yeah, I absolutely would love to lead it. And we have this really fantastic team of navigators, and so they go out. Some of it's in person. We're a little hesitant also with the pandemic, so they're doing a lot of phone calling, doing a lot of outreach, but trying to get PPE out to the businesses. We still have a bunch. If anyone that watches this wants to reach out to us, we have a bunch for the downtown businesses that we can distribute. We're asking everyone to take surveys so we can gather data, and we were looking at it most recently because it's not necessarily a competition, but it's kind of a competition inherently. The other organizations that Matt talked about, SAGE, Southside First, WDC, and Centro, I think historically have had kind of their own little areas, but there's just more and more of this need and this desire and this excitement really to work together in a way that I think just didn't exist in the past. And I don't know what has made that change, but it's been really fantastic. And so, each of us are doing a lot of this outreach. And you can see like the chart of like which organization is getting, more of the surveys. And we were ahead, and now WDC has like really pulled ahead. But the surveys, not for long. We are working on a strategy to like get us to the finish line.
Tell Ramiro I'm gunning for him. Yeah.
By the end of December. But it's really to gather, part of it's to gather information, but most of it is really just, there are so many small business resources in San Antonio, but they're not, you kind of have the problem where the same businesses or the same types of businesses go to the same sort of areas, and there are a lot of businesses that I think just don't know what's out there. Like UTSA's Small Business Development Center has a COVID response program that they started. It's meant to help small businesses adjust and pivot, and I think downtown businesses need that even more because if you look around, like this park is beautiful. We're at the new Frost Park for those of you watching, and there are some new businesses, but I think there's a lot of perception that downtown right now is just so crowded that people don't want to be here, or I don't know necessarily why people aren't coming anymore. And part of it's just employees that work from home. There's a lot of reasons, but to help these businesses pivot, part of what we're doing now is just helping with the outreach and making sure they know those resources are out there. Part of that's just in person, door to door, because some people don't use internet as much, or won't pick up the phone, but in person, and then collecting these surveys that are kind of like helping us figure out what do most businesses need. And the top one, of course, is financial resources are challenging right now. The second highest one that we're seeing, and the businesses that we've surveyed, is lower customer count, as you can imagine. And the third one being health and safety, which, of course, in a pandemic, you want people to frequent the businesses, but you also don't want them to crowd for their own safety and for the safety of the employees. So it's an interesting time, but while people aren't as populous downtown right now, it's a good time for us to figure out some of the more structural elements that when people start coming back to downtown.
It seemed like I've been doing these Facebook Live things on Friday night downtown and since July, off and on, most weeks. And it seems like while out on 410 and 1604 you see a lot of traffic, you see a lot of people, downtown, especially on the west side, because there's a lot of construction, there weren't as many people. And although the Alamo Plaza side, the west or the eastern part of downtown has kind of come back, how tough is it to get the people down here and the businesses and the perception of things like parking? And I mean, that's one you've been here all your life, right? And so you know some of those stereotypes of people out in Loopland about downtown and why they may want to go there when somebody comes into town, but they don't go down there on their own sometimes. How do you fight that kind of?
You start. I can go on a rant about parking in a minute.
Okay, I'll do my rant and you can do your rant. So I think there are a couple things. One is I think some people who've been in San Antonio for a very long time still think of the downtown area as the Alamo and the Riverwalk, and that's it. And more, I mean, the Riverwalk it's beautiful. Those trees, coming over, it's incredible. But the sidewalks are incredibly narrow. I mean, it's an old, part of town. But there's a lot more. Also, San Antonio, I think, because of that perception, Alamo, Riverwalk, the other parts of downtown don't get as much love as they should. And there's always been this difference between the street level and the river level of San Antonio. And that's changed a lot. And I think it's really kind of a matter of helping people see, beautiful parks like this new barbecue restaurant that will open up. There are new restaurants down Houston Street. Things are changing, and they have been for some time. And I think, once all the bond improvements are done being constructed and people over time see the perception or see that downtown it's growing, it's developing, we have more small businesses, we have more things that will pull you off of the Riverwalk that are kind of more for locals, and necessarily as the perception is for tourists.
What specific kinds of businesses or small businesses are you working with right now, and how close are they to failing? And have some, like restaurants, we talk about all the restaurants across the state, big fraction of them have closed, may not open again.
Yeah, so a lot, the Main Street businesses, a lot of the ones we have on downtown, especially Houston Street, are kind of more retail ones. We've done outreach for some businesses that have done well pivoting to beefing up their online marketing or their Instagram, something that'll, you see a picture and you're just like, I need that Mexican food right now, that restaurant, we're going to go tomorrow for lunch, and they have a patio space and it's great. As we see the numbers starting to come back up, the weather's getting cold, people, whereas before you could sit outside and enjoy, and then it's getting colder and colder and the numbers are going up, people are going to be less and less willing to go out. So I think it's going to get harder before it gets easier.
And there are the businesses that are focused on tourism, but then the ones on leisure, who I understand some of them are doing better. Like I talked to Davis Phillips and some of the businesses there. He believes he had his best October ever.
Which one is that?
Davis Phillips, he owns like Tomb Raider and those, or runs those right across from the Alamo, and was saying that some of the leisure businesses, people coming in, are doing better than they have before, while those based on tourism.
I think that's right. You got to build on what Sarah said, the dynamics, just the fundamental dynamics, is you have numerous large employers, the city, government right behind us, USAA and others who have decided a while ago, right, to have everyone work from home or predominantly work from home. That hits predominantly the lunch service businesses, so the restaurants that are big on lunch or big on serving employees as they're coming off of work. So you have that whole sort of element. That's an issue. Then you've got two types of tourism, right? You have the leisure tourism, and a lot of it's coming back. And San Antonio, in this instance, has an unusual advantage because we have, I think it's 80 to 90% of all of our leisure travel is drive. So the fact that people can't fly or are choosing not to fly is not an impediment. So, in the long view, I know lots of us want to see a lot more national and international tourism, but that will augment and add to, right? So we saw a lot of that, the increasing week over week, month over month, as you recognize. And then you got the convention, and that's all just been terminated. So there's a set of businesses that thrive off of the conventions. That's not Ripley's and right? So that's not the family leisure type of thing. So they're hurting as well. And not that misery loves company, but we are in some ways weathering the storm better than others, probably worse than others too. But I talk with my peers in other Texas cities every 2 weeks, and like the like 6th Street in Austin, like I'm hearing from my colleague that they may see 80% of those businesses close and never come back. Like it's that dire. So it is dire and terrible for everyone who's going through this, and the folks who have lost their businesses. Some people we know have taken early retirement. They're like, it's just not worth the brain surgery anymore. And so that stinks, it sucks, it's awful. And that's why we're just trying to do our best, and right now in kind of a triage, and as Sarah said, like this Main Street Navigator program, at least we're able to connect hundreds of businesses to resources. Like right now, like, do you need something right now that can help you weather the storm, while we work on, and this is another big piece of Sarah's work and her leadership is a comprehensive strategy to really work on the whole ecosystem. So we're months away from that, but we're working on that.
While that really showed the need in the pandemic, this isn't something that you're going to, I won't say abandon, but
we will never stop this. Yeah, I'll talk about the Main Street Navigators and I'll pop into something else, but that program was inspired by a program out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they developed it about 5 years ago, just for dealing with capital improvement projects. So they were putting in a new rapid bus transit down Central Avenue. And they knew statistically that those kinds of capital improvements can kill 50% of the businesses before the project's done, right? You're like, I'm going to do this project, it's going to be good for your business, but you're going to go out of business before it gets finished. So they developed this program to go knock door by door and go, hey, what's going on? What essentially we sort of call it like a business 101 assessment. Let's just look at some basics: your financial management, your marketing, your sales, your inventory. Like, what are the basics? And what they discovered there, and we're discovered here, is that a lot of Main Street businesses, a lot of the really small, mom and pop businesses, they're often started. This is one kind of least. Story arc, right? It started by someone who's very talented, awesome mechanic, great hairstylist, right? Like, I'm good at something, I'm a good cook, right? And they start something, but they've never run a business before, right? So they're the creator, right? They're the engine, but they don't have the business experience to understand. Like, there's a whole bunch of other stuff to be good at to actually have a thriving business. And so by doing these sort of assessments, they found out things like 68% of all of these small businesses had no financial management tool at all, right? It was all just a cash basis, right? Or X percent, 72% weren't on Google Maps. So if you're searching for a restaurant and you're not on Google Maps, chances are no one's even know you're there. So those are kind of like the basics that we are working on right now. And as we learn more, part of the vision is that you have kind of an escalation program. So like our navigators can handle kind of the basics, but then if someone's already got all the bases covered, right, then we can point them and connect them to some of these other great resources throughout the city. And in a critical piece of all of this, and that's why you just can't end, is because we have to go to the business owners. This is one of the things that you see in economic development all over the place. I was the head of economic development for Santa Fe for a couple of years before coming here to make a new home, which is great. And look at the sun come on me. Thank you. Reflecting off the tower, like, yeah, good. Give me a little sunshine. But what's critical is that when you ask small business owners to come to you, what you're really saying is, I don't know, 90% of you don't, 95% of you don't actually come to us because they can't. They really, like, in some fundamental way, they're not able to, right? Like they're working their tail off all the time. If they have family, they have friends, some employee gets sick, right? And the only time they can go is from 1 to 2 p.m. on Wednesday to get like a website training program. Like that person's never going to get that, right? So the taking the initiative and taking the care to go to the people and find them where they are in the moment where they are and go, what do you need? That's being welcoming, right? that's really catering and being user-centered and going like, we got to design these solutions for real people and not and understand what their constraints are so that we can overcome those constraints. So that's why this will go on forever. And I'm going to riff because you can edit us back and forth. But about the parking, I've heard that a lot since coming here. And I grew up in Los Angeles. I know all about driving and parking, and I'll be a little bit flip about this, but the backdrop is there is ample parking downtown. Period. Like the research was done by Kimley Horn about 5 years ago, and we had like minimum 20% excess capacity on any given day, unless it was like fiesta, and so there's plenty of parking, and it goes, and in the evening it goes through the roof because all these people like bail downtown and go home. So it's not a parking problem. More to me, it's a park and walk problem, right? Like, so I think that for everyone who thinks, downtown it's a pain in the ass to walk, I think, you know what you could do is to park, like you could park here, you get here, it's easy, you can park, and you get like 2 blocks worth of steps in on your Fitbit. It's awesome. Like, get 500 steps and boom, like,
You might get at a mall anyway.
yeah, you go out to some of these malls, no joke, you park farther away from the actual store you're going to than you do if you park at that parking garage 2 blocks away from there and be at this awesome park. The other thing about it is that, so that's, parking, we can't change, culture, but we can try to message out what is really going on here and what the real perception is.